Welcome back. It's the Big Blue Banter, New York Giants football podcast. I'm Dan Schneider, joined as always by my co-host Nick Filato. It's our My Guys episode, or Our Guys episode, as we're calling it. These are just our favorite players we've watched during the draft process, our favorite players we project during the draft process, guys that we believe will be value picks, most likely where they're drafted, based on the consensus draft board, right? Like that. We don't know where these guys are actually going to get drafted, but we like these players. We'd be happy if the Giants drafted a lot of these players or some of these players. Some players who made the list last year, Nick, I listened back to our My Guys episode. We had Tyrone Tracy. That was awesome because the Giants actually drafted him. We had Mike Sanders still, who had a great rookie season. And now I just texted you this before this, and now I'm already forgetting. But we had a few, like 3 or 4 other guys who have already hit. So I'm excited about this episode. We're going to do like a rapid fire way of going about this, Nick. But I think that's the best way to do it. So I'll kick us off with a player that I don't know if it's an our guy. It's I know it's an our guy. That's a joke. He's up top on a lot of draft boards. It's Travis Hunter, the wide receiver cornerback out of Colorado. And I don't care. I don't think it's unfair to cheat. Like, I'm not just going to say like Will Campbell, right? Or like Abdul Carter. Abdul Carter is not a my guy. I do love Abdul Carter. And I think he probably would be damn close to a my guy. You know what? He probably is also a my guy. But there's a different level of my guy with Travis Hunter.
Yeah. We're being quite liberal right now with our use of my guy. I think Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter are everybody's guy.
But that's maybe, but I'm not so sure everyone feels as strongly about Travis Hunter as maybe we do from the projection standpoint. Sure, like they agree, but like we believe he's the best player in this class by far. A lot of people would say you take Abdul Carter over him, you take Mason Graham over him. But I think the gap is enough as a prospect to forgo the position we'd rather have, which is like defensive tackle with Graham or outside linebacker, edge rusher with Carter. And so that's why I would say Hunter. We've talked a lot about him in the profile, but again, rare movement skills at the wide receiver position, in my opinion, rare movement skills in general, ball skill upside at both positions, in addition to release package, the ability to stack in the vertical game, to attack the football with his hands, the ability to potentially become a half field eraser as a corner if his man coverage skills improve as well. So just in my opinion, the best player in this class by far, and one of the best prospects I've studied since I started doing this.
Just a rare overall player, rare overall athlete. Few guys possess the type of upside that he possesses while also having an insanely high floor that is higher than other players' ceilings, right? So that's why we're so in love with this player. Easy my guy for most people who have ever turned on his tape.
And by the way, a recent report from Slick Rick, who Pretty Ricky on Twitter, who has had some hits.
Pretty Ricky, talk about him.
He said that there is some growing possibility that the Browns are going to take Abdul Carter. He was the guy they were on early in the process. He also reports that Sanders in the top 3 is very unlikely. I actually saw Todd McShay report today that a source close to him says the Saints are not taking Sanders at 9. I always thought that was fabricated. I never really understood that. It's like, oh, the Saints need a quarterback, so the Saints are going to take Sanders if he falls to 9. No, like, what if teams have a similar grade to Sanders that Nick and I have? That's not a grade where you just take him at 9 because you need a quarterback. And I don't think the Saints are going to do that. McShay said he wasn't sure they'd even take him at 40. So I don't know who's going to take Sanders in this draft if he doesn't go top 3 and when he's going to go. But my shady prediction, Nick, is Sanders might fall out of round 1.
That'd be strange.
I don't know who's going to take him. I don't know if it's strange. Like, why is it strange if they see it like we see it?
It's strange because the narrative around it now. I don't use look. Malik Willis. Everyone was talking about him in the top 5 not that long ago.
Will Levis.
Yes. Will Levis, another player who fell in the draft. So it's not strange from that standpoint, but it seemed to be a consensus for a while that this player was going to be a top 10 pick. The Giants have done extensive work on Shedeur, and there is a non-zero chance the Giants end up with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders if the Giants take him at 34. I don't think that's an impossibility.
I don't either. I don't think it's impossible for Shedeur Sanders to be on the board at 34 overall because of my projection of him long term, and because the fact that NFL teams see these traits too. They see that he's short. They see that he doesn't have the greatest escape as athleticism. They see his arm. Like, they see his non-explosive arm. No offense. Like, it's a good arm, right? It makes all the throws. It's adequate. It's great throwing motion. It's repeatable motion. It's over the top. The accuracy is great because of it, but it's not an explosive arm. No NFL scout in the world is terming that as an explosive arm. And so, like, Where's the upside for that type of prospect? I guess it's if he's like an amazing processor, which again, it's very hard to see on tape. As JT O'Sullivan said, and I think he's 100% right about, that Colorado offense is not translatable at all. And it's not a pro style offense. It's them running the same shit over and over again that works against defenses at the college level. So you have to guess when it comes to all that stuff, in my opinion, at least. And it could be great. He could be an amazing quarterback. He has great production. He has great stats. He has great adjusted completion percentage. He's got a lot of good to him, Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah.
But that may not be enough for an NFL team to take him in round one. I would not be shocked.
Yeah. And it's something that we're going to have to see. I mean, at this point, we're all just kind of waiting along. Let's get into our next my guy.
Sure.
And I think this is a collective my guy. It's somebody that we just got in our recent mock draft that we did. At pick 34, and that is defensive tackle out of Michigan, Kenneth Grant. We've talked a lot about him this process. I'm not going to beat a dead horse or be redundant, but this is like a 335, 340 pound defensive tackle who moves better than, or moves at a more efficient rate than somebody who is a 340 pound man. Not quite Dexter Lawrence. It's a little bit aggressive, but a player who would come in and solidify the Giants' run defense while offering some upside as a pass rusher. So these University of Michigan defenders, Kenneth Grant is one of my guys. I'm sure we're going to talk about somebody else a little bit later. But if the Giants landed this guy, if he ended up falling and the Giants ended up getting him at 34, that's a home run. That is a steal for what I believe this player can be and what he already is. So Kenneth Grant,
might be best case scenario.
Yeah, that would be
34 overall, right?
That would be something, unless Abdul Carter fell to 34. But
or I guess for some, sure, Sanders would be maybe the best case scenario there. But yeah, Kenneth Grant, a player you talked about, would win the award, in my opinion, for most likely to Dexter Lawrence this draft class, which is fall because there's questions about his pass rushing upside, but he hits all of the possible top tier upside because he can move the way he can move at his size. He already has the length. He already has the anchor in the run game. I think at minimum, he's a great run stopper for you right away. So definitely a my guy. Another my guy I want to get to in this class, Nick. I'm not sure if it's an R guy, so I'll just throw him out there. But it's Gray Zabel, the North Dakota State offensive lineman. I had, and this was a my guy from our last draft class. I think he was my guy and your guy when I was listening back to our my guys pod last year, Graham Barton. And I loved Graham Barton last year's draft class. And immediately he transitioned to center with the Bucks and became a weapon at the center position. I think a very similar path could happen for Zabel. They're not the exact same prospect, but they have a lot of similarities. I actually like Barton a little bit more on tape, but Zabel has the better athletic profile than Graham Barton had when I look back at it. So, and he played at a lower level competition versus Duke. So I think that's also something to note. Like, will he make that jump? But I'm willing to make that gamble. If he's on the board at 34, that's where I think I can get a weapon on my offensive line that I don't have on the interior. JMS is not a weapon. Neither is Runyon, and neither is Greg Van Roten. We have no weapons on the offensive line on the interior. Guys who can be get out in your move run game, design run concepts for them, design screen game concepts for them where they can get out in space and make an impact. I think this is one of those players. Obviously, he'd be converting from tackle where he played to the interior. Great, similar type thing to Graham Barton, who also was a conversion player. And you see that work a lot now in the NFL. So he's a player I'd love the Giants to get at 34. I don't think he's going to be on that board there, especially after Barton hit so well for the Bucks.
I liked Graham Barton more than I liked Gray Zabel, but I do like Gray Zabel a lot. And I would like to sign up to say, oh yeah, he's a my guy, right? Because I do think you can put him really wherever you need him to be. To me, Barton was more dominant of a player than Gray Zabel.
Definitely.
Yes, but I do like Gray Zabel, especially in this draft class. Like, look, let's call a spade a spade. This draft class, Dan, it's not nearly as exciting as the last draft class, right? Like, there was a lot of players in the last draft class. I think we're seeing that now. There's only a few blue chip. But when you can get a player who has a high floor, a player with developmental upside, and a player who can wear many hats like Gray Zabel, you take that, right? You take that if you need that type of upgrade and that type of support on your offensive line. The Giants do need that. I don't know if the Giants would go in that direction necessarily. Now, another offensive lineman who is a my guy, and look, I don't want to go with these my guys from the University of Alabama who aren't that great athletes, but I just love Tyler Booker, man. So Tyler Booker, my guy, spoke a lot about him in recent episodes. Absolutely dominant. I love players who have that finisher mentality, players who understand angles, understand how to frame blocks, and then know how to finish those blocks with authority. Those guys who earn pancakes like they're at IHOP, bro, and they eat them and they'll talk all the shit in the world to their opponents when they drive them into the dirt. there were plays where Booker was in space and he was eliminating corners and safeties, and you just see him just get so fired up, dude. I love that type of disposition, that type of temperament, that type of mentality, while also possessing, for somebody who's not the best athlete, good pass protection, right? Like one of the best anchors I've ever seen, but not just slow footed, right? Like quicker feet than somebody you would, I think he has quicker feet than you would imagine based on his RAS and based on how he tested. I'm not saying he's the most fleet of foot, but he has quicker feet than I would imagine for that. So Tyler Booker, that is my guy. I think it's a your guy as well. And if he's there at 34, as I did and you did in our dueling mock draft series, be a selection for me to certainly be happy about.
Bit of a controversial pick, Nick. Not a lot of people like. Some people really dislike Tyler Booker and think he's a good chance to be a bust. I get that case as well, but I just like the tape a lot, and that's all I can really go off of. And I am making a projection too, but I just don't really think that he's going to be this like this athlete that can't function at the NFL level, because he still has the size, the length, the like other parts of his physical profile that work at the NFL level. So it's not like all bad in that regard. But we'll see. Another player that I think we both have as a my guy is Kyle Williams, the wide receiver, Washington State. Got to watch him play a little bit with Cam Ward, but really phenomenal stuff last year in his final season. You could just see, like, obviously, if you followed us long enough, Nick, you know that anyone who listens know I have a type at wide receiver. Kyle Williams fits that type exactly. It's that ability to get in and out of your breaks, that smooth lower hip flexion, whatever you want to call it athletically. And this dude gets in and out, and he has post catch juice. He's got vertical speed. He can win over the top, albeit a lot out of the slot, but just my exact kind of receiver. And now this receiver type, by the way, I just want to be clear, it doesn't always work, Nick. Like there are the Paul Richardsons of a draft class, right? Like Paul fits his profile. And then there was the kid who I really like, not Paul Richardson. He was drafted in the same class, but he was an older prospect. He was 24 out of, I believe, Bowling Green or one of those MAC conferences. No, Western Michigan. What was his name? He was drafted to Seahawks were Richardson. I think the Rams drafted this kid. Do you remember him, the receiver out of Western Michigan? I really liked his tape.
Dwayne Eskridge? He went to the Seahawks.
He went to the Seahawks, and I guess Richardson went to the Rams. One of the two, or
no, Richardson went to the Seahawks as well.
Seahawks, they had the type. Yeah, they have a type too. It's clear, but that type doesn't always work out. Like you know, there's injuries or things that just make it so you don't work out. But there are a lot of hits with this type as well. The ability to get in and out of your breaks smoothly. I just think it means more than a lot of this other stuff. As creating separation is my number one factor. And by the way, Joe Schoen has said the same when he evaluated Malik Neighbors last year. Is like the number one thing we look for. He said this before with players like Robinson and things of that nature. The number one thing we look for is the ability to create separation. And so that's what I think we're getting if we draft Kyle Williams. So I would be interested in this one.
Kyle Williams has been my guy since I watched him. Just absolutely fluid, in and out of his breaks, explosive, short area quickness, everything that you want in a wide receiver from that perspective, from a movement perspective, which everyone who listens to this podcast and watches football know moving is pretty damn important. So yes, he dropped some passes, but I just think the upside is through the roof with a player like Kyle Williams. Depending on how far he falls, he could be one of those mid-round gems that can be located and targeted. There is another wide receiver I have as a my guy, but this is somebody who he's a my guy, but he's a my guy way down the list because
I think I know who it is, and he's on my list too.
Is he really? Okay,
we'll
see. Big Ten, yes.
Yep.
Illinois wide receiver.
Yep.
Pat Bryant. I watched Pat Bryant back in like December, and I actually texted Sal, and I was like, Sal, have you seen him? And he's like, no, I haven't watched the offensive wide receivers yet in the Big Ten. And I was like, I really like him. Now he ran a 4.6, so he's gonna fall down draft boards. But this guy caught 70.1% of his passes in 2024 with an 18.2 yards per catch with just one drop. He goes up and he attacks the football. He caught 66.7% of his contested catches in 2024 with a 2.83 yards per route run rate. Elite size, good muscular build, long arms, deceptive on double moves. He reminded me a little bit, and I think we've said this name in the past for another receiver, but he reminded me of a little bit more of an Isaiah Hodgins when it came to route running, because he understands how to run routes. He's not the most explosive, not the most exciting receiver, but if you need that prototypical X type of player you can align on the backside who can win one-on-one matchups just through jump ball and using his body and basically being a big rebounder, that could be a Pat Bryant. And he's going to be available more than likely in like the 5th round. So I liked him. I thought he played faster than his speed, albeit I didn't think he was the was the most explosive or fast player, but give me him in round 3, and I think he could have a valuable role. He's not necessarily a quick twitch type of guy, but he's a controlled build-up speed player with a high football IQ who understands how to run routes.
Yeah, he's the opposite a little bit. Not opposite, but he's a different prospect to what Kyle Williams is and would offer something different. But I kind of think as you get into this range of the draft, and I think he might be like in the 99, 105 range. When you get into that range of the draft, there are very few of these prototypical type X outside receivers prospects that you can have that would compare to Pat Bryant in any class, let alone this class. So I think he's a little bit unique in that regard. And I really liked his tape too, watching him. And I know he's a player that the Giants could potentially bring in because while they did re-sign Darius Slayton, they still do kind of have a roster that's a little bit small on the smaller end at receiver, I would say, with Wan'Dale Robinson, with Jalen Hyatt, even with Neighbors to some extent. So it'd just be a way to add size in that prototypical X outside. I like him a lot too. I wouldn't say that he's somebody I need to get in this draft, but I probably say that's the case for all skill position players. I don't feel a need besides running back to get a skill player in this draft, though I would like a receiver for sure. All right, let me throw another player at you.
Do you have another wide receiver for my guy?
Do I have another receiver?
Yes.
I have two more.
Okay.
I have a late comer we talked a little bit about in the mock, and that's Savion Williams from TCU. And I'll just say this with him. Again, I went into it thinking I'm going to watch Cordarrelle Patterson because that's what people told me. And I came out of it thinking this dude actually has some route running upside and some ability to create separation with his release package, specifically in the red zone. That to me, when you're that size and you can move like that, and if you can kind of create yourself as a route runner, by just working hard and working on your craft, you have way more upside than somebody who doesn't have your physical gifts. So he's someone that's a bet on traits later in the draft type thing. But that, again, to me is more 99, 105. The player that I'm going to throw out there, Nick, at wide receiver, my guy, who would be in play, I think, and I don't think he'll ever fall here, and I don't really want him at 34, unfortunately.
If it's the same guy I'm thinking of, I'm going to be upset with you.
It might be because is it a player you're thinking of that fits my prototype?
Yes, actually.
Okay, well then it might be the same player. I don't think he'd be there at 65, but it's not like the production profile is that crazy for this guy. And I haven't seen that much hype on him either. But I finally got a chance to watch him as I've kind of done these like cut-ups recently of just all pass rushing snaps or all routes from a receiver. And Jaylin Noel, the Iowa State receiver, is that who you thought I was going to say?
Yes, that's who I was going to say. That was going to be my last late push, my guy who I just recently watched. And I believe it is Noel, not Noel.
Is it Noel? Okay. Yeah,
I believe it is Noel. But yeah, dude, this is
Noel.
He's very similar to, he kind of has a little bit of Jaden Reed to him, right?
Yes.
Michigan State, a little bit, just an explosive downfield threat who can win at all 3 levels because he's a good route runner. But not only is he a good route runner who is smart, he is also someone who has a lot of upside athletically, who can outrun cornerbacks and who can eat into the cushion of off leverage, use a little bit of that shoulder lean, get a cornerback to open up, and then explode with, I would say, very good to excellent burst out of his breaks to get to the sidelines or to use the double move. So yes, Jaylin Noel, that's funny. We have hardly talked, or Noel have hardly talked about this guy, and we've come to that same conclusion.
Said 0 words about this guy together before this podcast or at any point, but it's funny, but it also kind of does fit a profile of players that you and I like. We like those receivers who get in and out of their breaks. We kind of feel like that's the most important thing at the NFL level when you're facing NFL corners and a lot of zone coverage, as teams like to play. So I just think Noel, if the Giants got him at some point, there's so much untapped potential. I think, I didn't love Higgins as much in that offense, but I think he was great at the college level. Noel, someone who I think could be better at the pro level personally, because I think that his skill set translates a little bit more. But both of them I kind of felt were held back by that offense, and we didn't see their full upside or what they're capable of being. So Jaylin Noel, I should say, not Noel, Noel. Jaylin Noel.
There's another wide receiver, but again, I think it's just cheap to say he's actually, I don't know if it's cheap, but Emeka Egbuka is just
I like him a lot.
He's just very good, right?
We're again, never drafting him.
Never drafting him. Not the flashiest. I hate the fact that I did watch his tape and say, he kind of does remind me a little bit of Jackson Smith and Jigba. Just because he's playing in that Ohio State, and that's a lazy comparison, but just a technician as a route runner. And that's the Brian Hartline effect. Brian Hartline is a wide receivers coach over there at Ohio State, and it's no wonder that all of those wide receivers come out of that program and they just run freaking. I remember Hartline when he was the Miami Dolphins wide receiver, dude, a couple years ago, like a decade ago. But Mukuba is he's a phenomenal talent and somebody who's just going to have a long, steady career in the NFL.
Yep. And that's a player that I think we've both seen a lot of tape. I don't know if probably not in the mix for you at 34, right?
No.
Okay. But he'll definitely be going in that range. So in the 35 to 50 range is where I
Like if
see
the
him
Giants
going.
select him, I wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be upset. But I just, again, it really depends on who else is on the board. If the Giants got him, I that offense would be I would say much more precise. I think he would significantly help this offense. He would probably, but like you can play him, I guess, outside a little bit, but that's more of like a Wandell role,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's other guys a little bit later in the draft, depending again on who's available at 34. But I just like adding good football players too. And I know he's a good football player. So I wouldn't be pissed at him at 34. I just don't know if that's the best allocation of resources.
I'll take a different stance. I will be pretty pissed if they take him at 34.
Gotcha.
I'll be honest. I'll be pretty pissed if they take any skill player at 34. There's just going to be, and that's crazy as shit happens, Nick. And like every O lineman and D tackle I like is off the board and edge is off the board. But like the chances of that happening seem very slim to me. And so based on the board, I'd be really disappointed if we go skill player that high, unless it's Travis Hunter, obviously. Like, 'cause people are like, then why do you want Hunter at 3? It's like, well, he's the generational prospect and maybe the best I've ever studied. So I don't give a flying F what position he plays as long as it's not running back. Right. So it's like, let's be honest and open about understanding the difference between those two things, and why we might like a player like that.
3 running back, my guys, I have. What about you?
I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 running back, my guys.
Jeez. All right, let's rapid fire through them. Okay, we've talked a lot about some of these players. My top running back, I love Omarion Hampton, but I'm not going to put him in there. Treyveon Henderson, I am going to put.
That's my top one too.
Yeah, he's my top. Just a home run hitter who is deceptively physical and excellent in pass protection and does all of the little things correctly. Is somebody who Nick Filato, me, talking in third person, pretentious, will always love. So Treyveon Henderson, dial that one in. I'll just run through my other 2 real quickly. Everyone knows Kyle Monongai is in this list. Obviously, Kyle Monongai is a my guy as well. I'm not sure if he's a your guy, but I've talked so much about him throughout this pre-draft process. The Giants get him in the 5th, 6th round. I think that would be a home run for the New York Giants, and he would complement what the Giants do really well when it comes to running the football, complements Tyrone Tracy and Devin Singletary, and then Damien Martinez as well. I think he probably complements a little bit better than even a Kyle Monongai because he's a little bit more of a physical runner. That is the running back out of the University of Miami. I think he's a high upside, just 220-pound physical back with excellent vision. I wouldn't say he has home run speed or anything of that nature, but he finds ways to break off these 10, 15, 20-plus yard runs. Very good football player, smart football player. That is Damien Martinez. And those are my 3 guys at the running back position. And there's a lot of other guys I like, but I'm going to leave it at that.
And I didn't have Martinez. I have Monongai and Henderson, but I do like Damien Martinez a lot. This is just a stacked running back draft class in so many ways. My guys at running back are Treyveon Henderson, who we talked about. Also, my 2 favorite values at basically the entire draft are at running back, with Cam Skattebo, who I think was, again, fits the bill of, he was the entire offense, took over 13 straight games of 100+ scrimmage yards, has every little, like, can catch the ball, can run routes, low center of gravity, impossible to tackle because of it, fights for every yard, great ability in my mind, at least, to potentially translate as maybe not in every down back, but as a weapon on your offense, which is what every offense needs. Because I still think he's a little small to be an every down back and maybe a little too raw in pass pro, but love him in this class. And then RJ Harvey, I've talked about, 24-year-old back. That's the knock on him. But like, as far as just purely watching these cut ups and tape goes, he's probably the most electric back that I've seen besides Tuden. I'm not including, obviously, like Hampton in the open field and Genty. I'm saying of the next tier, and not even including Henderson in this, of that next tier, of that tier of like, once we get past day 1, day 2, where are we at with these backs? He's the guy who stands out to me from just pure explosiveness and playmaking ability at the running back position. And then I said Monongai took over the entire offense, a player who, you broke it down well. A couple others that I put in there, Nick, are Jarquez Hunter. I'm late to him in the process, Auburn running back, but he just has all the tools I look for: the production profile, the size, the speed, the ability to force missed tackles, and the ability to create yards after contact. Very good player. Also somebody who handled the entire workload and has proven he can. And then finally, this is Jacob Gibbs put us onto him in our podcast with him. And then I've had a chance to watch him. Raheim Rocket Sanders, like, just a really fun watch. seeing him in the open field, watching him stop and start. I love those backs, Nick, you're watching them on their cutups and they're running in the open field and there's space that they're working with in the open field, but then there's a defender that they've set up and they have the ability to stop in that full speed run and then restart their momentum. Not like a lot of people have the ability to stop and start at the line of scrimmage, Nick, at the early part of a run play, but those that have the fluidity downfield to stop and start and re-get that momentum going and acceleration going, which Raheim Sanders has, it always just stands out to me as a rare athletic trait. I don't know what it's, measured by, but that's something I see on the tape. So those are my big guys for the running back position.
All right. Is there any other offensive linemen or tight ends that we have?
Yeah, so for me, and I talked about him in the mock draft, the 7-round dueling mock draft, Nick, so I won't go too far into it again. It's Fannin Jr. Just don't really understand why people don't like him. He's young, insanely productive, has all the advanced metrics, has one of the best 3-cone drills since Sam Laporta, who was one of the biggest hits in any draft class. I think this dude gets it, and on film, he knows how to get open. I get it. There's questions about his route running. There's questions about what position he's going to play. He's not a traditional tight end. I don't care. Give him the right offensive coordinator. Give him any good offensive coordinator, and he'll find a way to use this move weapon on his offense. So Fannin Jr. is a player that I think people have slept on, and he would be my only tight end. I do love Colston Loveland, but he's not really doesn't make this show because the Giants are not going to be interested.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Look, we all love to work out. The summer's coming around. You want to look good in your bathing suit. But in order to enhance your workout, you want to go and use MitoPure from Timeline. This is a great product. When I started using it, it makes me feel stronger, gives me more energy. I recover quicker. I'm in my 30s. I still have the energy to work out. And if you want that energy, you really should give Timeline's MitoPure a shot and work it into your routine. The great year of 2025 is your year to be the best, most energized, most revitalized you. MitoPure promotes cellular renewal and mitochondrial health to address common signs of aging at the root. MitoPure is the research-backed innovation that unlocks your fullest potential. Timeline is offering 10% off your order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/banter. It's timeline.com/banter. That's TIMELINE.
All right, Nick, just two other guys I didn't mention as we're staying on the offense side of the ball, and you asked me about this position a few minutes ago. I would say both Josh Connerly and Simmons from Ohio State are my guys at the offensive tackle position. They're what I look for in the offensive tackle. They have the fluid feet, they have the quick moving feet, and they have the athletic profile that I want in an offensive tackle. I've said a few years ago on this pod, footwork is becoming a non-negotiable for me with offensive linemen. And I think those two fit that bill for me. And again, there's some really high moments too. Connerly against Abdul Carter. We talked about this on a previous pod. Really good tape there. And then Simmons, I know it was against lesser competition, but before he tore his ACL last year, he looked like a top five, top 10 type offensive tackle. And so you might get that because of the injury later in this class.
What about Marcus Mbow from Purdue?
I also had him at the bottom of my list as an interior offensive lineman. Just a really fun guy to watch. I'm not sure I would have watched him if he wasn't a top 30 visit. So who knows how many of these players that you can't get to everybody, but he is definitely a fun watch.
Absolutely, man. Feather feet is what I got written down for him, man. Just explosive out of his stance, very smart. Needs to get a little bit more sand in them pants, though. That's my one thing. Love how big his hands are, though. Marcus Mbow is an exciting prospect. All right, let's move over to interior defensive line. I think there's going to be quite a bit of my guys here. We already talked about Kenneth Grant.
Sure.
For me, Derrick Harmon is my guy. He didn't do all that much at Michigan State, goes over to Oregon and is an absolute terror. And yes, he had a lot of missed tackles, but one of the reasons why he missed so many tackles and he needs to clean that up is because he was putting himself in a position to miss those tackles, which was something that I don't think a lot of defensive linemen could do to begin with. High floor player, high effort player, upside as a pass rusher, good run defender, can anchor, can split double teams, can do a lot for you as a run defender while also being that terror as a pass rusher. So Derrick Harmon is my guy for me. Oregon.
Yeah, me too. Him and Grant are just two guys that I think are top 20 prospects in this class. Easy. Top 15, maybe, if we're being honest, and we're looking at how gross this class could be. So if either of them fall to 34 just because they play interior defensive line and there's question marks about drafting a position like that high, which some teams don't really do, definitely players who we'd snap up for the Giants. So definitely a my guy as well. I would throw Alfred Collins as a my guy too, in my interior defensive lineman. I get he's limited upside wise. I don't know if I care. I just think what he does well, he does really well. and you don't have to spend, in my opinion, more than like the 65th pick in a draft class on him, top 75 range on him, and you're getting such an important role on your defense or on your, I don't even want to say defense, Nick, on your football team. What do we say is the most important? Inside out, right? We're saying this thing is built inside out. Interior defensive line, interior offensive line are insanely important despite them not being valued by everyone at that level. They make or break you winning football games. Do you win at the trenches? This is a guy that can help you win at the trenches right away, immediately, and long term.
Yes. So Darius Alexander, Toledo. Got to imagine that he is also your guy. He's a my guy as well. Am I correct in this assessment?
I get a little scared from Alexander because of the age and production profile, to be honest.
Okay, I'm comfortable putting Darius Alexander in there. I get the age and the production concerns. We've talked a lot about him, but he's just a controlled mover and somebody who's an explosive player. That upfield burst that I'm looking for in a defensive lineman. I mean, I'm looking for a lot in a defensive lineman, and there's not a lot of players who can fill what I'm looking for. We have one on the roster right now. His name is Dexter Lawrence, but there's only one Dexter Lawrence. But Darius Alexander, for if you need that quick guy who can rush the passer, who, yes, he's a little bit older, but I'm not overly concerned about that. Depending on where the Giants do land him in the draft, I'm going to make him a my guy.
What about, and I'm fine putting him in there because I do, besides what I said, he's awesome. And he dominated against Senior Bowl competition, which shows like when he steps up to a different level of play outside of Toledo, he can still make it happen. Also, literally watching him operate and execute a pick six is insane at that size. The way he moved after catching that interception was just showed off like a different level of athleticism. So I'm totally fine with that one as well. We can get just through like rapid fire of any other players. Doesn't have to be position. Like we didn't mention Josiah Stewart, the edge out of Michigan, but that's both of my guy for Nick and I.
Yes.
A player I came on late into the process because he was a top 30 visit for the Giants, but I fucking love is Andrew Mukuba, the safety converted, came from Clemson as a nickel. 1 year at safety of the Texas defense. I felt like when I watched Texas defense, he was a massive reason for their success. Maybe plays a little too crazy and a little too hair on fire, like for his size at 184. I know he tested 193 at the combine, then came back 184 at the pro day. Injuries will be a concern with him. Any kind of safety with that kind of range who's screaming that fast downhill is going to have injury concerns. It's why I don't love taking safeties that high personally. I like to get, I've told you this before, Nick, but I like to get my defensive backs in free agency, to be honest, or try to develop them later, like using premium capital on a position that can get hurt and that's small. It's not my favorite thing to do. But this is a player who I could, if he's still hanging around late into day two, I'm definitely interested.
So I have two more day three defensive linemen I wanted to go over.
Okay.
One is Yahya Black from Iowa. Not the most exciting guy. Will be in a rotation, might not be a starter, although his calling card would be a player who can really just shut the run down on early downs. 336 pounds, 6'6", massive frame, similar to the other defensive lineman I'm about to talk about. That's the archetype of player I'm envisioning right here in day three. Someone who can anchor down against double teams and who does a good job shedding at the point of attack, offers virtually nothing when it comes to a pass rusher. But again, it's such a valuable role, and it's something the Giants have not had. And if the Giants aren't going to get that at 34, or if they can't get that at 65 or even 99, and the Giants are sitting there at 154 or even in the 200s with a guy like Yahya Black, he tested so poorly, I can entertain that. Now, Yahya has, I think, 35-inch arms, an 84-inch wingspan, over 10-inch hands, 10 3/8 at his pro day. And again, just anchor his ass down and just have him be a stump, a root in the middle of the defense. And there's another player who also fits that bill, and that is Cam Jackson out of Florida, 6'6", 328 pounds, just absolutely massive, low to the ground. He can play low to the ground, I should say. He's obviously 6'6", so he's a bigger dude. When he does play low to the ground, I think it's exceptional as a run defender. Sometimes he can allow his pad level to get too high. That tends to happen. Doesn't offer all that much, though, as a pass rusher. So I'm speaking mostly off of guys who I want to just shut the run down opposite of Dexter Lawrence. What we envisioned Jordan Riley to be, but we didn't necessarily see it last year. So again, 6th round, 7th round type of picks, but I wanted to give them that my guy for a late, have the caveat that, yes, this is a later round projected when I don't want to reach on these guys because there's just not a lot of juice there.
No, I hear that, and I like that. I like that idea for some late round targets. We also discussed those in some of our podcasts. Zach Frazier, somebody I like to bet on trades on. Another player who I I think I don't want to call him a my guy, but he's a borderline my guy, and I think he's interesting to include here because I think he might end up falling. Though I don't know if the NFL will let him fall. I know he's fallen multiple rounds on the consensus mock draft board. Deone Walker, a really interesting prospect.
A lot of people hate him.
A lot of people hate him, and for good reason. I totally get it. He's 6'7", basically 340, with crazy athleticism, but plays really high, and people hate him because of that. You may never make it in the NFL if you play as high as 6'7". But like, I just think back, Nick, to this Ole Miss Kentucky game I watched when I first started watching Jackson Dart, and these back-to-back reps from Deone Walker where he just absolutely obliterated the offensive guard coming through, beat him so clean and right in Jackson Dart's face, 2 reps in a row to take over a drive. I'm just like, how many guys are 6'7", 340 and can move like this and can take over a drive at moments the way he took over that I watch typically when I watch interior defensive linemen? I don't see a lot of them. So I just think if you have that upside, there's something to tap into with the coaching. Maybe the right coach can get him to play the way that they want him to play. I don't know. Andre Patterson's someone who's had a lot of success. I do know that you're not going to find 6'7", 340 guys who move like him. And in my mind, that's something worth betting on if he continues to fall in this draft like he's fallen on consensus mock draft boards.
All righty. Love it, dude. Love it. Got a linebacker, my guy. No surprise. Won't spend too much time talking about him because we have spoken about him quite often, and that is Carson Schwesinger out of UCLA. Low key, another player, much more developmental player. Not going to say he's a my guy, but just to put him on people's radar because he's also a UCLA Bruin. That is Kain Medrano. He's much more developmental, day 3 type of pick, but another solid option that I was like, hey, maybe when the Giants sent their linebacker coach over to UCLA, it was for Schwesinger, sure, because they privately worked him out, but it was also to get eyes on, or maybe they, by proxy, got eyes on Kain Medrano. So it's just another name that maybe the Giants would look to add day 3 if they want more linebacker depth. But they also did add 2 linebackers this offseason, and Chris Ward, and then the kid they got from the 49ers who has 3 names. Maybe they are looking to get a long-term linebacker, and that would be Schwesinger, maybe not a developmental guy, which they already picked a UCLA Bruin developmental guy last year in Darius Muasau. So I'm going to go with Carson Schwesinger, though, as my guy. I just absolutely fell in love with that kid's tape.
I loved him, too, so I totally get that. I think 34 is a little too rich for me. I assume you might be in that same camp.
It really depends on who's on the again, it's similar to Egbuka. I want good football players. I want good football players. I understand your argument, Dan, but I do like good football players, and it's a good football player, so I can't be mad about it, but it might just not be my number 1 choice.
Yeah, no, I get that. In a different class, I might be more open to it. In this class, I guess I'm less open to it. Again, I just think, and I know you I'm not saying you don't know this, but
I might disagree with that though. I'm sorry. Can you finish your point? I kind of cut you off.
No, the point was just what we were discussing earlier, which is I want to build through the trenches, and I think that's available to us at 34.
I get that. I think there's also an argument though that in this draft class where, I mean, there's depth, but the star power isn't necessarily there.
True.
Maybe you get the star power at positions that you wouldn't necessarily want to target. Because I think Schwesinger has a chance to be like a top 5 linebacker in the National Football League. I don't know how many players in this draft class have that type of high upside, that type of ceiling. So
that's fair.
That's one reason why I would look at him. Yeah.
He's a strong case there.
He's a good player, man. He's a fun player too.
Very fun player to watch. So I like that case. He convinced me to keep him in mind for that pick. Any other my guys for you?
Yes, I have 2 my guys as cornerbacks. One I think will probably be around 2, round 3 guy. The other one probably fall to day 3. And it's Nohl Williams from the University of Cal. And I just got done watching the game against Syracuse with Kyle McCord. And holy shit, man. I love this player. Haven't heard that much about him, but just elite movement skills, excellent tackler. I talked about him on one of the more recent pods. I think the dueling mock drafts because I selected him. If he falls at a value, I know the Giants, it's perceived that we don't need cornerback. I'd say we still do. We can use really anything. It's just our more dire needs in cornerback. But Nohl Williams knows how to take the freaking football away, and he knows how to tackle, and he's sticky in coverage, and he may not be the fastest. He ran a 4.5. That's quick enough, in my opinion. Has recovery speed, quick out of his breaks, fluid. Give me Nohl Williams, outside cornerback. And the other one is Upton Stout. I've talked a lot about him throughout this process from Western Kentucky. Kind of similar to a Drew Phillips from a play style standpoint. Reminded me a little bit of Max Melton, who we talked a lot about last year coming out of Rutgers. but just a really quick, lightning quick out of his breaks, physical type of player who flies around. Similar type of player to the kid from Texas. How do you say his last name? Mukuba.
Mukuba, I think.
But Mukuba, I think, is just a better overall player than an Upton Stout. And Upton Stout's much more of a nickel rather than a safety. That's what Mukuba really thrived as. And I really love Mukuba's tape. So I want to sign my name off for him being a my guy as well. But yeah, Upton Stout, Western Kentucky for day 3 depth in the secondary. But he's, again, shorter, more of a nickel slot type of player.
And I like that. Melton was the guy who made my guys last year. I listened back to our last year's episode. So maybe you have a type at corner. Good sticky coverage. Not as much.
I don't like smaller guys, though. That's the thing. Like,
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of a smaller like cornerbacks, but it really comes down to like that. Hey, I put my foot in the ground and now I'm already going from like 0 to 100. That like immediate acceleration and suddenness is something I love in corner because that's what leads to interceptions. And that's something that Williams and Stout both possess. And Mukuba too. Mukuba's ridiculous with it.
Mukuba's awesome with it. He's so fun to watch. All right, that's our My Guys episode. Those are our favorite players. I will say this, Nick. You can correct me if I'm wrong and if you just didn't get to it, or if you have the same bar that I'm setting for it. Not a single quarterback in this class would be a my guy for me.
I heavily debated putting Tyler Shuck in there. Okay. But I think there's enough drawbacks for me to say no. And a lot of them that we discussed, like the falling away. I don't really care too much about the injuries or the age as much, but I strongly considered making Tyler Shuck a my. Okay. If I had to make a quarterback a my guy, it would be Shuck. I just don't know if I don't know how much I believe in Shuck, because if I did, I would be like, we should take this guy much higher than just what the consensus is saying. But from an arm talent perspective, absolutely, right? The 1 year, the guy was in college for how long? He only has 1 year of production is a little concerning. But again, the age doesn't necessarily throw me off. That's what a lot of people do discuss about him. But if I had to pick somebody, it would be Shuck. What about you? Would you put Milroe?
No, I would not put Milroe as a my guy.
If you had to choose
if I had to choose, well, first
Cam Ward, obviously excluded.
It would be Cam Ward if I had to choose, but that's not obvious for me. He wouldn't be a my guy.
We're not including him though. Like I'm
no, but I am fine to include anybody you want. I think
no, but like I'm trying to say like if we needed to choose a quarterback who the Giants are going to have a chance at selecting, who would be your guy if you had to have a guy.
Yeah, what I'm trying to say to you is I want to keep it more consistent along the lines of like if I don't believe in this guy, he's not a my guy. And I don't really have anybody in this class. I know I don't have anybody in this class at quarterback besides maybe Cam Ward, who, again, is not even a full my guy. Like, it's not like how I felt about Drake May watching his tape or Caleb Williams or even Jaden Daniels. Like, it's a lesser level than that, but it is good. Like, I take a chance on his skill set. He's creative. Cam Ward, he's an explosive thrower, and he's creative with how he sees the field. That's enough. There are drawbacks to his game. I don't think he's the biggest prospect. I think he has some issues that are not going to show up on Miami tape, but might show up in an NFL offense. So I don't think it's perfect. It's not a my guy by any means, relatively speaking, but it is to this class. Outside of that, dude, no, I'm not going to plant a flag for Jaylin Milroe, and I don't want to plant a flag for Shuck either, personally, though I understand that case for sure. Adam Schefter reported today that at least one GM has Tyler Shuck as his #1 quarterback overall over Cam Ward and anyone else in this class, and I could get why. Again, he's the only big quarterback in this whole class. Like, what are we doing here? We've accepted this is the shortest class I've ever seen be hyped up. We're talking about like 6 guys under 6'3", Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jaylin Milroe. It is not good to be a short quarterback in the NFL, but we've just accepted it in this class. And these are guys that like, can you go at 34? Should you be trading up to 20 for these guys? Because of the desperation at quarterback, and the market plays out that way. And just because it worked last year with Bo Nix and Michael Penix, worked, I use in quotes because Michael Penix played 3 games, but it did work with Bo Nix. Doesn't mean it's going to work every year. These are different players. And to me, this is not a year where it's going to work. I just don't have enough belief in Milroe or Shuck. Those are the 2 guys that come to mind. I'm not a Dart guy. I want to be a Dart guy. I'm not a Dart guy. There's rumors the Giants are interested in Dart. I hope if they draft him, I'm wrong, and I could totally see the upside case for Dart, but I'm just not as huge on him either. And so I just don't have that conviction, Nick. Not enough to put a my guy.
Hey, I understand it. I didn't put him as a my guy, but I could certainly be convinced with Shuck. I really buy into the, like, I'm trying to think of some of my drawbacks. I don't have my report. Go check it out at Giants Country. You'll see all the weaknesses I have listed there. And we brought some of them up through the podcast, but I think there could be something there for sure.
There could be something there for
Yeah.
sure with Shuck, and it's easy to see why, some NFL GM, like I said in February 11th, like low-key hot take on the draft when no one's even talking about him is I've just watched a lot of tape of these guys. I think he kind of throws the ball better than most of these guys on tape. And it's pretty obvious when you watch the tape, like who can spin the football and who can't spin the football. I'm very surprised by some of the dialogue around draft content Twitter when it's like, are you watching this are you actually taking the time to watch these guys throw a football and who looks natural and like where the ball placement is? Is it pinpoint or is it general accuracy? Is the ball coming out on time? Is the receiver getting out of his break and the ball is landing there? With Shuck, it happens a lot more consistently than a lot of these guys rated above him in this class. So I get it with Shuck.
Absolutely.
So I would like Shuck and Milroe are the two that if the Giants drafted Nick, I'd be the most hopeful about after Cam Ward.
That's what I was trying to get out of you before. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and
But
it's good. It's good to label that it's not like a my guy thing because you don't have the conviction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are not my guys, but and I do want to say I don't want to bury last thing. I don't want to bury Sanders. I'd still be hopeful if the Giants drafted Sanders because there are some aspects of his profile like it's just he's not my kind of quarterback, and I'm never gonna like a quarterback with a non-explosive arm who's short and doesn't really escape pockets well and takes a shit ton of sacks. Like it's just not my kind of quarterback.
So, do you think Sanders, if you were to comp him to any quarterback in the National Football League right now, who would it be? There's one quarterback in my mind. I think I've heard this from other people, so I don't think this is a novel take. But I still think the player that I'm about to mention has more escapability and probably a better overall arm than Sanders.
Well, like currently in the NFL, because Teddy Bridgewater is no longer in the NFL.
Yeah.
I
think Sanders has a little bit of a better arm than
he's
Bridgewater.
better than Bridgewater. He's a much better arm than Bridgewater. I think a considerably better arm than Bridgewater. I think like the closest comp for me is Bryce Young. But the problem with that is Bryce Young had so many more NFL level anticipatory throws on his tape.
He did.
And that offense was so much more real at Alabama than whatever Shermer designed at Colorado.
It was.
So I don't know, like, again, like it's Bryce Young because I can get like the idea, like similar type escapability, similar type size, arm talent. Like I don't think
here's the name that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
And again, I think the player I'm about to mention has a better arm and more escapability, and that's Brock Purdy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think you could argue that Sanders is better arm maybe than Purdy, or I don't know.
I think Purdy is a deceptive, like when it comes to maybe strength, but I don't even think Sanders has like the biggest arm as we've discussed, but it's more like Purdy really layered. Like we've watched all 22 Purdy before, and it's like
it's really good.
This guy's got a much better arm than I thought. I thought this, like we kind of lazily, like not you and I, but just collectively be like, oh well, he's with Shanahan, so it's probably really easy for him. But then you see some of the throws he makes, you're like, I think that's
his tape.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So like
he's done more with that Shanahan offense than any quarterback who's ever came in there, without a doubt. But the thing with Purdy I actually think Sanders might be, for me, comparable from both an arm talent and athleticism and like escapability. The difference for me between those two players is I think that Purdy plays way more on time than Sanders with way more anticipation. And I don't really know why I'm supposed to believe Sanders is this great anticipatory quarterback who plays on time based on his tape. It's based on what you hear about him, right? He works hard, he's smart. But the tape doesn't really show that. And this is the whole confusing thing. This is why JT O'Sullivan called Shedeur Sanders the most confusing projection. All right, he said he was insanely confused how this could be a first-round projection. He doesn't have that on him because the tape is what confuses you about it. The numbers are there. The stats are there with Sanders. The pedigree is there. But the tape isn't showing this anticipatory thrower that people are saying he is. To me, is it showing that to you?
Not to the level that I've seen some people judge. I have seen anticipation, but it's not like every single throw. And again, it's a little bit difficult. Look, like the offense can be used against Shedeur Sanders because there's like 4 freaking concepts.
Right.
And there's a lot of screens and a lot of stuff around the line of scrimmage because the offensive line was so bad. But then at the same time, it's like maybe if he was in a more stable environment, we would see more anticipatory passes.
And I totally agree with that. And I think it's an important thing to note. But again, what are you even saying within that discussion? You're saying maybe if he's in another offensive environment, but that again is in its own right saying we haven't seen it yet, but we can see it if it's in a different. And I think you can see it, by the way.
What does that remind you of?
Amazing. What?
What does that remind you of?
No, I know. I don't even want to bring that up. But I think he can be a great anticipatory thrower at the NFL level. I want to make that clear. There are definitely moments of it. I'm not saying we don't see anticipation when you watch him, but we're not seeing this like guy who's just the field. Like Joe Burrow was the best anticipatory thrower I've ever seen at the college level. I didn't get to see Phil Rivers play. I'm sure he would have been up there as well, and Breeze as well at Purdue. That was before my time. But Burrow's level of anticipation, you saw it when you watched him. Then there's like the next level, right? Bryce Young at Alabama, you saw those throws. Drake May, we made the case last year. That intermediate level, the real level of NFL type anticipatory throws, Drake May was anticipating. But when I watch Pat Shurmur run a half field high low where it's like, yes, he's throwing the dig on time Sanders, but it's kind of the most defined route ever because of the route combination and what's going on underneath it. And he knows that dig is going to uncover at that time. Is that anticipation, or is that just him knowing the concept that they're running over and over again and making the throw to that point? And that's not to say those are his only anticipation. He has plenty of anticipation throws, like outside the numbers, down the field. He sees things fast. He can diagnose a pre-snap. There are good moments of it, but when this is supposed to be his best trait, the one that like defines him as a top 3 pick at the NFL level because the physical stuff isn't there, I feel like I would have seen more of it like I saw with Burrow and even to a lesser extent with Bryce Young.
Hey, man, I get you.
Yeah, it is what it is, though. And somehow this evolved into a conversation about the quarterbacks. It always does, or evolved, I should say, never devolved. Thank you so much for listening to the Big Blue Banter podcast, our My Guys episode. Players we really like in this draft class. Hit the like button, subscribe. Please leave a comment. Juice up this algorithm for draft night. Yeah, otherwise, have a great rest of your week, and we'll talk to you soon.